Hi, everyone. My name is Grace, and I'm a lawyer, and I'm here to talk to you today about something that's really close to my heart. And that's Myanmar, also known as Burma. I worked in Myanmar for the past 3 years, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on currently. You've probably heard a lot about Myanmar in the news and the crisis that's going on. It is something that's very tragic, and I wanted to give you a little bit of background and ask you to pray for a few things. So, as a brief review of the background of Myanmar, it's also known as Burma, and it's a country in Southeast Asia near Thailand, south of China. Myanmar has been on a path to democracy for the past about 10 years, and that was following 50 years of military rule. During the time they were under the control of the military, they were very closed off to the outside world. However, they've had a series of elections over the past 10 years, and the third one was last November, just recently, of 2020. The opposing party to the military won by a landslide, over 80% of the votes. And because the military feared losing their power, they committed a coup against the civilian government on February the 1st, which was supposed to be the first day of Parliament. So, over the past couple of months, what have we seen? Well, in the beginning of February, we saw really a pretty amazing uprising of the people of Myanmar, a huge diversity of ethnic groups, of people with different backgrounds, getting into the streets and protesting together. And the solidarity was incredibly inspiring and amazing. These protests were completely peaceful, and they filled the streets of all of the major cities, including a lot of the places that got less media coverage, the outlying towns and villages. They formed a movement called the CDM Movement, or Civil Disobedience Movement, in order to support the nonviolent protests and ask for the restoration of democracy and the release of their elected leaders. Unfortunately, what has happened since is a gradual escalation of violence by the military and the police against the protesters. And now more than 700 people have been killed and thousands have been arrested. Those are just numbers that have been confirmed, so it's likely much higher. People have suffered arrests at night in their homes. And something that just shows the solidarity within the communities is that because the police would come in the middle of the night and try to arrest people that they knew were protesting in the streets, other neighbors, if they saw the police coming, would bang their pots and pans to let other neighbors know that the police were coming. And in that way, they would try to warn each other and protect their communities. Regardless, many people have been arrested, and we've seen prominent community leaders arrested, doctors and lawyers, people that are really needed in the community. On top of that, reporters and media representatives, as the government continues to attack free speech in the country. Well, in spite of the crisis and everything that's happened, there are some places where there is hope. And I wanted to mention that because I think that's really important. People continue to protest across the country. They continue to fight for democracy and for their freedoms. And that's in spite of police shooting them during these peaceful protests. We also see police and military officials decide that they're not going to stand for shooting people, unarmed people in their own communities anymore, and they have defected and risked their own lives to do so in support of the civil disobedience movement and in support of democracy. We've seen civil servants refuse to go to work in order to protest the military rule and in support of democracy. And there have been efforts for a parallel civilian government that represents the elected parliament to work with other ethnic minority groups that are around the country that have historically had significant conflict with the different parts of Myanmar. And so these groups are now getting together to try to unify and combat the military oppression. Something also that is really important to mention here is the Rohingya crisis. The Rohingya are an ethnic minority in Myanmar, and they have suffered significant persecution in Myanmar historically. In 2017, more than 900,000 of them fled their homes. into neighboring countries. And still 100,000 of them approximately live in displacement camps in country where they are refrained from movement. And this is because of the ongoing genocide that the military has exacted on the Rohingya people. However, this potential return to democracy, if the military does eventually step down and democracy is restored, could offer an opportunity for the Rohingya to find reconciliation and participation finally in the democratic process. So please keep Myanmar in your hearts, and please pray for a restoration of democracy. What we've been seeing a lot lately in the news is potential imminent civil war because of the fact that its negotiation seems to be dwindling as a possibility. And also, more immediately as well, is the need for protection of communities and people as they are being persecuted by the military, as people have been suffering violence, unlawful detention, arrests, separations from their families, and also just their cutoff of communication to the outside world, which is really terrifying for people. People need resources, food, money, all of that is slowly being cut off from them. And people need us as the international community to be their voice and to continue to raise awareness about what's going on in country, especially as they continue to be cut off from the outside world, that we continue to show the world what's going on and stand against the military oppression that's occurring in Myanmar. So if you want to support what's going on with the civil disobedience movement, there are also resources. They do have a website. It's called iSupportMyanmar.com, and Scott will provide that for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time.